Cleanup does begin, and the severe weather has moved through after hours of relentless rain, powerful winds, and in one case that we know, at least one tornado. Justin is going to have a look at much clearer radar in just a few minutes. We're going to check in with you.
Yeah, that's right. First, the focus of our coverage right now is the damage. Justin, again, joining us as we get our first live look from Sky 2. Let's take a look. This is up live, Deer Park off State Highway 225, and you can see the damage there to a number of homes right there. That one particular home, part of the roof ripped off, and we can see that on so many other homes throughout this particular neighborhood.
We're not going to really know for sure if this was wind damage, if this was rain or the tornado. Justin and I were talking about this with Keith as well. But Justin, by looking at this from your experience, I mean, all this damage and things are picked up, they're thrown, there's so much debris everywhere. We saw cars flipped over, trees cut in half. I mean, it is clear that there is some tornado damage in many of these areas.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've got the one confirmed one from the Weather Service in Deer Park. They're going to send out damage assessment crews, and they will actually get the designation of the strength of the tornado, what we call the EF rating, right? Just like we do with a hurricane, do it in terms of the wind. For tornadoes, it's done based on the amount of damage and the type of damage. That's the more important one as well. From what I've seen so far, and I'm just going to kind of spitball this here, this is probably closer to more like an EF2 tornado. So we're talking well over 100-mile-an-hour winds at this point. Not only that, but some of the video that we showed at the top of the hour there from Mario Diaz that showed the inside of that, like a warehouse or whatever that was, just blown out at that point, right?
Well, we can see right there at the top of the screen now to the left, that fence knocked down. We also saw a tree toppled over, and we saw the roof damage as well.
And so what you can get with that, Danny, sorry I didn't mean to cut you off here, is that you can get both. You can get wind damage, right, from the straight line winds as the front itself is moving on through. And then within that wind damage, or within that wind frame, so to speak, you can also get a tornado to spin up. So you're sort of getting a double whammy, so to speak, right?
And sometimes we've seen, Taisha Walker was showing us some damage, like in one house, nothing in the second house, and in the third house. So it's like the funnels, it just jumps, you know? It hits and then it jumps, it hits and then it jumps. And that's why you warn people, like, stay inside, take shelter, because you don't know how the behavior of this tornado.
And when Carolina and I were here earlier today on these storms, especially as it started right around Pasadena, when that warning went down, we jumped over to what's called the velocity product. That basically shows the wind direction. And we were seeing a very tight, what's called a couplet. And that means that we were probably seeing a storm that was rotating to the point where it was strong enough to be able to do the type of damage that you're seeing there. Pick those things up. We talked about this too, Danny, is that it's kind of like you're, a little kid picking up Legos and just tossing them everywhere at this point, versus sort of taking your hand and just kind of knocking things over in a unidirectional spot. And that's why when it bounces, like you said, or sort of hops from one house to another, that's what you see.
And take a look at the top right there. We're also seeing some flooding from all the rain, Keith, that we saw earlier today, too.
That's right, flooding there. Also, as Sky 2 begins to zoom in, what we also saw was there was at least a structure in one of those backyards totally damaged as well. It looks like it could be a deck, a gazebo that's turned over, that's knocked over. So my goodness, we've just seen so much that this storm has done. And we were talking earlier that we are actually seeing today, of course, we're used to severe weather in the Houston area. We've seen it for, a number of years. But my goodness, we've seen some pictures of things that we don't normally notice in severe weather that we don't get around here. The cars, we don't, thankfully, we don't see any cars in that neighborhood turned over. But we've seen cars, 18-wheelers tipped over.
Well, the winds that were coming through with these storms, the storms themselves this afternoon were moving at about 40, 45 miles an hour, right? 39 miles an hour is tropical storm force winds. So if you've got a storm itself, that bulldozer of the cold front at 45, and let's say the wind gusts are upwards of 60 and 70, even without a tornado being there.
It's still a lot of damage.
That's a lot of damage, right? That's enough to take down trees, power lines, as we've seen. Of course, the Center Point folks, I believe, was over close to 60,000, or no, 100,000 when we talked to Sion in the 4 o'clock hour here. So that'll improve. But yeah, my guess is too, you see those fences at the top of the screen there that just kind of got knocked over. So that may have been some of the push of the initial wind knocking over. And then of course, that roof right there on that corner could be similar, Danny, to what you're talking about, is that you've got this funnel cloud that dips down, kind of sucks that up real quick, and then pops back up and then goes to the next one. That's why a lot of times when you get those tornado swath paths of damage, it really is, it's just sort of, one of those really unfortunate things where one house is completely ripped ripped in half, and the other house has absolutely no damage at all.
It seems untouched. Yeah, good news and bad news when it moves that fast, because good news, it gets out of here fast, but the bad news is because it's moved so fast, it's caused so much damage.
Oh, you do an enormous amount of damage right there. Yeah,
My goodness.
I mean, that's what we're seeing. I think this may be that apartment complex.
This is in Center Street. Yeah, this is in Deer Park. I mean, you've got the complete roof just gone. I mean, these are homes where people live, where they have their things.
Yeah, this is video from earlier from Sky 2.
Well, and you see the other part too. You see those brick walls of those first three that are just blown in at that point. So sometimes what can happen isn't necessarily just the wind itself, it's the pressure, right?
Right.
So as that pulls up, you've got the pressure that can help kind of collapse that wall as the whole thing gets pulled in. It's really remarkable that, we haven't seen any injuries and or anything worse at this point, considering, I mean, that's a substantial amount of damage.
We worry about people, we worry about pets. Speaking of pets, we do have team coverage that we want to get to as well.